Hello and welcome to the channel again. I've got a Marshall in today, as you can see. This needs no introduction, and this is in because it's turned into a bit of a breakfast it's frying bacon. It's breakfast time. So we strongly suspect that that's probably going to be the plate resistors, and that's really bad. You know, yeah, with a bit of the old frying or rustling, as you can hear. I know it's not the tubes because I've already tested those at the place that I fetched this from the music shop. We just tested the tubes before I brought it, and so it looks like we're going to have the back off. So let's swing it round and have the back off. So if we just drop the camera down, you can have a look. You can see this is a reissue one. It's not one of the original ones. And a bit of dust inside, but it's not too bad apart from that. So we're going to use some whopping transformers on it as well. So we're going to take the chassis out and have a look at what we've got there. We've had some new Marshalls. Looks like these are new. These tubes, looks like they're pretty new. See what we've got in here. I did test all these, swapped all these with another tube, but I never looked what they were. Oh, electro harmonics. So they've probably been replaced at some time as well. So I would guess. Let's see what's in the others. My word, those are tight. Yes, yep, electro harmonics. So they are, and I guess the other one is as well. So it's a tidy unit. This, look at it. It's not, you know, it's not been messed around with. Whoever's retubed it, they put a full set of good tubes in it. So we'll get it out of the chassis and we'll have a look. So there we are, looking inside it, and it's a PC board extravaganza, but then we expected that. Bit of a thin board. Now this amp's got a date on the side, you can't see it, it's on sticker, and this, according to that, this is a 2017 model. This is the 1987, so it's a 1987 reissue, 2017 model. We've got a board on there, no doubt that's for send and return. So where do we go with this? Note the half-watt resistors as well, which I don't like to see those in amplifiers. It's all the rage nowadays putting those in, but that's frying really badly. So one of those resistors is very noisy, I'm guessing. So we need to locate the plate resistors, and I think, given the fact that I've now looked at this and they're only half-watt resistors, I think I'm going to change all of them, all the plate resistors that are in this amplifier. Looks a very well built thing, other than that really. The valves are mounted onto the chassis like the traditional ones. Obviously the pots are mounted on the chassis. Yeah, it looks tidy in here. The leads are all tidy, the lead rest is fairly tidy in there. So it's just a case of those half-watt resistors, I'm afraid. So I'm going to do a bit of testing and locating, and I shall return with the results. But the first thing I'm going to check before we get underway looking for the plate resistors, I want to see if there's any voltage in these capacitors. And no, that one's this nil power in that one. Let's test the others. They're probably all drained now. Yeah. Always check before you start breveting in amplifiers. You get a nasty shock if they're still charged. You're going to get a bit of a nip off it, but you could do without that, couldn't you, really, when you're working on them? So that's just check those. But yeah, they're drained, so we shall begin. Right, that's with the first 2-bar on the first preamp 2-bar, which is a Mullard incidentally. We didn't look at that, did we? Look at that. Mallard, there we go. So you can see it's still frying away with merriment. So let's pull another one. Right, so change this resistor here, and what I did, I took this board out to get to it, cut it out, jumpered another one in, and you see it's made no difference. I've got a feeling it's further on down the line. Now if we look here, we just hone in with the camera there, you can see there is a resistor there. That's an 82k, and then there's a 100k next door there. They are the plate resistors for the phase inverter, and this cap is the cap that goes across there, which I think prevents oscillation. So I'm going to have a look at changing 1 or 2 of those, because we now know that on these 2 stages and on here V2, we're pretty sure that it's past there. So we're going to look at those resistors next. I must admit though, that really is bad. And that was the dulcet tones of Pink, who we're just about to switch off the power. And the reason for that is that Pink is looming. Yes. Right. Before I wanted to delve any further into this, I wanted to make sure that this send and return board isn't causing the problem. And I'm sorry, I don't like these things in tube amps, they're garbage. I've got op amps there, and no, not for me. But anyway, it's in this amp, so what I've done is I've bypassed it. And as you can hear, it's made no difference whatsoever on this amp. So we know it's not that, because the only feeds that are left on this board are the voltage in and the ground, which is there out, which I know that because it's on the bus rail. The green's connected to the ground bus rail. So I think we can eliminate that. I've changed a few plate resistors. I've just tacked in a few, cut a few out quickly and tacked them in, because I'm going to have this board up anyway. Right, I've got this board out, and the first thing we notice, and somebody's been in this amp before, or they've tried to get in it, and I'll explain why that is in a minute. If we look down at that capacitor there, you can see it looks like it's balloon, madam. Where the pip is in the middle, it's let go. But what it's also done, and if I can just get the camera up there, can you see the little shit fest on there? And I'm guessing that's what's causing the frying. Strange, the capacitor's not causing any hum whatsoever, but I'm guessing. And what I also noticed is that green wire there is very microphonic, and all that area is very microphonic, which prompted me to change a resistor there, but it made no difference. And I thought, I'm going to have to get this board out anyway, because obviously I've tacked on the resistors, the plate resistors that I've changed, and I thought I'd get this board out, and as soon as I lifted it, spotted that. So bit of a serious issue there. We've got to clean all that off. I don't know how much of the board it's corroded, or even how long it's been like that, but what makes me think someone's been in this amplifier before is because a couple of reasons. One is this standby switch was loose, and that's the first thing you have to take out to lift the board. You can actually see that when I'm moving it. That is so. But the other thing is that the nuts that hold down the board, there's spring washers on those, star washers, and on some of them you could see where they've been put on the other way around, and you can see the marks from when they've been tightened down onto the star washer. Also there's black paint on these edges here, which I presume they put on for the warranty, over the screws, and all that's gone as well. So yeah, so whether someone actually got in here, lifted this up, had a bit of a look and thought not tackling that, or whether or not they tried to get in it for some reason, but it does appear someone has tried to get in here at some point. And you can see, if we just hone in on the wire there, you can see all the gumps up on that wire. So that capacitor's shot, and according to the date on this amp, which is on the side, we just go around there, and I'm sure that's that's 1987. I don't know whether that means 2017 or what, but I can't see another date on it to me. But someone probably, I don't know. Could it be the guy that owns it seems to think it's 2007, but I'm not sure. It's very clean inside for a 2007, I'll say that. Very clean. This amp looks almost brand new to me, but I don't know. You know, if you look at these screen resistors, they're pearly white. They normally, after 15 years, they're getting a bit tanned. So I'm guessing this amp's not that old, and for that capacitor to blow, really, in 5 years, you'd expect them to last longer than that. So they're obviously garbage, and there's two more of them in at the other end, at the power stage there, and they are those AES ones, I do believe. So that, I'm afraid, has got to be changed, and that has all got to be cleaned off there. Without a doubt, that's very nasty, and that's what's causing the frying. It's, you know, I would almost bet on that. The capacitor won't be causing the frying, it'll be the electrolyte that's all over the board. So there we are. So now we know what's wrong with it. Obviously there's a few, you can see a few resistors here that I've actually changed and just tacked in, not those two, those were already stood up. There's only four that I've checked, well, five, because I changed that one on there just to be sure, but that one's fine now. So just 10 minutes to change those, no big deal. These two are also soldered in, stood up. I haven't done those, so we need to order one of those, because I've only got 100 plus 100 in that size, so we need a 50 plus 50. Just another point to note on this, on some of these, on these older versions of these amps, you could drop these capacitors out from the top and change them, and probably could have cleaned that board up as well from working through the hole there, but you can't on this one, because if you look how they've grounded it, instead of it being on a wire like the older ones, they've just pinned it onto that socket there. So there's no way that you can change that without taking out this board, which to me is a bit of a boo-boo. Right, so you can see I've cleaned, let me just hone in, you can see I've cleaned off quite a bit of that. Now remove this, you can see I removed that tie wrap, and that tie wrap was round the red cable there. There you can see, and you can see that, you might not be able to see, but where that tie wrap's been, you can actually see, you see the electrolyte, it's even got under the tie wrap, and I took that off, and that's why it's important to, sorry, I've just lost that, it's really hard to get in there. That's why it's really important to clean all this electrolyte off, because it's corrosive, and it will eventually corrode through those cables, and they are high voltage, so that's the last thing we need. It may take a long time, but will eventually, if we don't get it all off. We've also spotted where it's actually, and you can just about see in there, you can see there as well, it's blown up and onto the contacts there on that one that you can see. So there's more, even more in there. It's really hard to get in through all these wires. So yeah, so that all needs cleaning up. There's still quite a lot of this. It's spread quite, probably a third of the board. You can see where it's blown, and so we need to get all that off before we do anything else. So there we are. I've got the first one in, because we're going to do all three of these. Remember, there's three of them. That's the one that obviously is blown, or was blown. It's not blown anymore because it's being replaced. And I've also replaced that ground terminal there with something more substantial, because we just hone over here that bit of a weedy bit of wire which was not even wrapped over. It was just resting on the side really of the terminal. So now we've got a nice big chunky one in there. So that's that done. So we've got this board in, and we've got it switched on, and it seems very quiet. I've not replaced the other two yet over there. I just thought we'd get this going first. I've put all those resistors in properly that I tacked in when I was testing, and it seems very quiet. Let's just find a lead. Put in it. We can hear that somebody's alarm going off somewhere. I don't know where that is. So we're going to see if we've got any signal. And we haven't. So we've got no signal. So why is that? What are we missing? Ah, there's a tube out. I've just remembered. There we go, got the tube back in. Forgot to put that back in when I was testing. That is a mobile phone. We'll just remove that from there, out of the way. Just put that on that bench there. That's it. And there we go. That's quiet. This thing is loud. Seriously loud. Yep. Now that's running, you know. I got feeling there's a little bit of capacitance hum there. Now we can actually hear the background. So we just hone into the speaker. So those caps could be on the way out in the corner there anyway, although we are going to change them. Those two over there, you can see, they could well be on the way out. Let's just turn, mind you, it's not. Let's nip that up. It could be that there's no screen. I mean, it's still out of the case, but there's a bit of a noise there. But anyway, it runs. Yep, so that all seems good. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch it off, and I am going to tighten up all the pots. I'm going to put the nuts on the board and tighten all the board down, tighten up this on the back. That's only finger tight. Just make sure everything is back, and the standby switch. Make sure that everything's tight. I'm going to run it up again, and then what I'm going to do is change those over there, and then this amp will be done. Right, it's all back together. I've tightened everything up, and yeah, it's running okay. So we're going to have a look at those now in the corner. So I'm going to change those out, and I'm going to check the bias on it, and then we can wrap this one up. Right, finally got these caps in, and yeah, they're all good. So we've done that. So we're going to fire this up, and then we're going to check the bias on it. Got rid of those weedy ground cables that they've got in there, and strengthen those up a bit. This wire here was just laid across and tacked on. So I've been doing a bit of research on this amp to find out what year it is, instead of keep speculating on what year it is. And the date is actually there, M, which stands for England or Britain or UK or whatever you want to call it. 2002. So this amp is a 2002. So that would explain why that cap's blown. It's 20 years old. So probably not rubbish caps after all, just old and tired caps. So recapping this amp with that information in hand, 21-year-old caps, and then that obviously that's a good thing. They definitely needed those doing. What I can't understand with this amp is that it's so clean inside. It's like it's never been used. It's just immaculately clean. And let me just put some more light on now. I've had to turn one off because it was flickering when I was looking at that date. So yeah, this amp is in fantastic condition for its age. Unbelievable. Normally these are starting to turn a bit brown. These, by the 20 years old, these plate resistors, these screen resistors, but they're not. They just look like new. I don't think they've ever been changed. And it's very clean inside, and not really dusty either. So it's obviously been kept for a number of years, maybe, and just not used, just kept covered up. So there we are. I'm just gonna, I will have a bit of a check around just to make sure we've got no leaking coupling caps. Again, given now that I know this amp's 2002, just because to show there's that many stickers on the side, you can easily make mistakes. I'm not great at dating things. I'm not one for sitting and reading lots and lots of info like that, but maybe I should. I'm a bit lazy there, not getting that right, but I've got it right in the end. Right, let's get this amp fired up, and then we'll get the take some measurements on the output transformer, and fire it up. Take the readings either side for the voltage drop, and do the maths and see what we've got. Right, looks like we're running into more problems somewhere along the lines. So been trying to bias this amplifier, took the readings off each side of the transformer, the impedance of each side of the output transformer, and the volts drop, and I've now got the adjuster, the trim pot, maxed out, and look at that, 11.3 watts maxed out. So when I actually check this amp, it's running at something like 7 watts, and obviously we know the 25 watts dissipation, 70% of that is 17.25. So there is problems. The other thing that alerted me to the fact that there's problems with this amp, that if we look up there, we can see that that's only consuming 350 milliamps of current, and that includes the variac. And when I first switched it on, it was only consuming 250 until I turned that trim pot up. I'd expect to see that at about half an amp for a 50 watt Marshall, and that tells me, those tell me something is wrong. Now remember, we now know this amp is 20 years old. Are those tubes tired? They'd have to be really tired, wouldn't they, to be that far out. That also doesn't tally up with this amp because it's in such good condition. It doesn't look like it's been dragged around 500 bars a year. So so I'm going to take the tubes out and just test them now, and see if they're really low on emissions. Right, tested the tubes and they're good. If you look at R28 there, I don't know how close we can get in before it starts to focus. Focusing failed, it says on the camera. 56k is R28, but when we look in here, R28 is 68k, so there's a discrepancy on there. Now I don't think that's ever been changed, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. So it looks like this amp's had a set of tubes in it at some point, and these tubes don't draw as much current as the ones that were in here previously. Just turn that down. Now I've actually got my hands on the bottom of these tubes, and that bias pot is maxed out. So R28, if I change that to 56k, I would probably then have enough to bias these tubes up correctly. But of course, having not found this out until we've put the board back down, it means we've got to snip that resistor for these tubes and tack on, and I hate doing that. I just don't like it. So there's a real problem. I cannot bias this amp up correctly. 11 watts is the maximum I can get out of these tubes, and that's 40%. So strange why this amp's been running like that. I've no idea, but I've got that maxed out by now, and there's heat coming off the tubes, but they're not. You wouldn't say they were boiling hot. I've got my hands on them at the bottom. You can see there quite comfortably. You know, it's cold. So need to have a bit of a think what we're going to do. All I can think is that this had some different. And this is a thing where I have mentioned this before. With biasing amps, some tubes just draw lots more current than others, and this has obviously had a set of tubes in from the factory, and they've obviously been using those tubes. Somewhere down the line, they've had to change that resistor for the actual tubes that they were using. Someone's obviously now changed these tubes, thinking that these tubes were the original tubes were tired. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, and they've put these tubes in. And these are the same tubes that they used when they had a 56k resistor in there. Who knows? But there's a discrepancy there, and yeah, we're going to have to change that resistor, I think. Right, I've jumped in a 56k resistor, and I've just done a setting and on the trim pot, and I've got 15.8 watts, which is about 36 milliamps. So that's more like it, much closer. And that's the other side, 14 watts. I've now set the first side, which was 15. I've now set that at 17, and I've got this one at 13.9. So you can see this the 3 watts out. I've got 17.7 on one side, and I have a 15.1 on the other, and that's really as close as I can get them. I don't want to push the 17.7. That's 70%. I don't want to go over that. Let's just check again. The calculator. So it's 25 watt dissipation times 0.7 equals 17.5. So 17.5 watts is the 70% mark. So we're on that. No frying, but sadly we've got to think about what we're going to do about that resistor. Am I going to take the board out to solder that in, or am I going to connect it in, tie it onto those terminals that I've cut? And There's nothing wrong with doing that, I just don't like doing it. But to take this board out, I've got to take out a standby switch, all the pots, the nuts, that shitfest send and return board to get that one resistor in there. And that's more like what I'd expect it to be drawing off the mains, and that includes the variac, just shy of half an amp there. That's about what I'd expect for this amp. And there we are, I just had to do it. OCD. The other thing is I'm so fast at getting these boards out. Once I've done it once, when I come to do it a second time, because years ago I worked under a tech and I used to strip stuff down, especially when we got busy. I would be just stripping amps down as he were fixing them, and I got so good at it and so quick. So I was loosening a nut off with a spanner, and then I'm turning that off with my fingers while I'm loosening the other one off with a spanner, and so I'm so fast at it. And I got this board out second, because obviously once you've done it once, you know what you've got to take out. I didn't have to solder off the wire that we had on the power over there, somewhere over there, can't remember, in that area. But anyway, I didn't have to take that off. So I got this board out in 7 minutes, and I got it back in probably about the same. So 15 minutes to get the board in and out, and 5 minutes to solder him in, and we are rocking and a rolling. So this amp is now biased up, and this amp is finished, and it's been a bit of an awkward one, to be fair, and a very misleading one. Me initially thinking that the frying was a plate resistor, and it turned out to be that blown capacitor and all the electrolyte on the board that was making this fry. A bit of a tricky one, and yeah, we've recapped it, as you can see over there, and the other one's under the board so you can't see it. We've biased it up by changing that resistor, which was 68k on that was in this amp. It's 56k on the schematic. I couldn't bias this up properly, so I've put the 56 in, and I've got this amp biased up. Tubes are a little bit mismatched, but they'll be fine. So there we go. So I think what we're going to do now with this is get it back in its case, and we're going to plug it in and have a listen, and I'm quite looking forward to it. Right, here we are with this Marshall, and have a listen. So I've got a Strat through it with a Seymour Duncan mini humbucker in the bridge. This amp is incredibly loud. And considerably louder than it was when it came in, given the fact that it was biased at about 4 watts. Channel. got a lot of treble on there. So we're back in the first channel now. So there we go, that's the Marshall 1987 50 watt head. It's a reissue, bit of confusion with the dating on this, but it turned out to be 2002, and after a bit of research, should have looked at that first really, a bit lazy there. We've completely recapped this, well, with the electrolytics anyway. We've recapped all the electrolytics on the power stage, and we've had to obviously change that resistor to bias it up correctly. Not sure what was going on there, why we got a 68k resistor in this amp, and that's obviously been in from factory, but it says 56k on the schematic. Obviously they're not the original tubes that's in it, and the tubes that are in it before must have drawn a much higher current. And obviously Marshall buy their tubes in, I would imagine, in huge batches, so that's the only thing I can explain with that really. But we've got this amp biased up now, we've got it running spot on, it's very quiet, it's not frying bacon anymore, so we've got no issues there. So that's it. So thanks for watching this one. Please subscribe to the channel if you wish to do so. And you all take care, and I'll see you all in a future video. Bye bye for now.